John O'Neill Farrell, Olympic speed skater, medalist and coach, has a most interesting story to tell, one which encompasses a vast variety of events, such as being a local champion. Even though Chicago was his home, he traveled around the world, earning medal after medal. The hundreds of accolades he has gotten do not sum up his entire story at all. John O'Neill Farrell was born on August 28, 1906, in Hammond, Indiana. As a young boy, he was brought up in a relatively poor family, so the first skates that were bought for him were a pair of wooden ones that someone would strap to their boots. They are currently in the Speed Skating Museum. He started to skate when he was a boy and would constantly compete in championships as he grew up. He would win medal after medal and trophy after trophy. He did numerous matches in Illinois, such as the Chicago Tribune Silver Skates Award race. He skated a race only against a few other competitors, which were skillfully selected from different areas, and he came out in first place. The prize for this race was a pair of silver ice skates that said Chicago Tribune Silver Skates Award, John Neal O'Neill Farrell. His son Roger now owns the hundreds of medals he has owned over the years as he grew up. They are kept in 3 giant picture frames and they barely even fit. One time, when he was training, though, he injured his arm. When he was around 18 to 20, he was going around the rink in Chicago, where the Blackhawks trained, and as he went around the bend, he smacked his shoulder into the net, and at this point in time, they were not on magnets. They were in posts that were dug into the ice. So this did not give, but his shoulder did, and he broke his elbow. After this, he was suspended from skating for around 3 months. In 1926, after his recovery, he won the title International Outdoor Champion for speed skating. Once he was a young man, he got affiliated with the Olympics. In the 1920s, he was chosen to be in the 1928 Olympics. This was a great accomplishment at the time, because speed skating was one of the largest and most popular winter sports at the time. There were no real professional sports that were prominent, except for baseball and golf, but those were spring and summer sports, and could generally not be played inside of a building. And because skating needed ice, of course, this was impossible during the hot months. It was impossible because, at the time, there were little to no ice skating rinks that could hold the freezing temperature of ice. Because there was no real major league speed skating, being in the Olympics was one of the only things people heard about in that category. It would show up in the newspapers and magazines, and news was passed around by mouth almost everywhere in the Midwest. A very, very large sum of people had already heard of Farrell already from his childhood fame and ongoing winnings, so it was not hard for him to gain publicity, since most of the people in the Midwest have heard of him who were fans of the sport. Even being in the Midwest and being a champion speed skater was amazing, because the majority of those who skated were from more northern states, of course, like Maine or other states in New England, where it was colder and skating was therefore more prominent. It was prominent in many other states and countries too, like Norway, Sweden, and other European countries. Claes Thunberg, a well-respected skater, was a friend of John during his skating career. He won a staggering 5 gold Olympic medals in his career, 1 silver and 1 bronze. He won 2 golds in 1928. In the 1928, the Olympics have arrived, and John is in St. Moritz, Switzerland. He was 21 and was set to do the 500-meter race with other participants Irving Jaffe, Eddie Murphy, and Valentin Bialis. The results of this race were a 3-way tie, but because of this, John achieved the bronze medal with Murphy and Jaffe far behind him. Next, after that, it was time for the 1,500-meter race. After a long fight, he was defeated, sadly and unfortunately, by both Murphy and Jaffe. Then, The 5,000 and 10,000 meter races were held, and the results stated that John got 17th place in all. Later, in 1936, Farrell coached the speed skating team of America. At that time, the coach did not really teach the team because they had prior knowledge, of course, and that's why they were picked. But they mostly just made sure everyone was there, because a lot of competitors would go out by themselves and get drunk and not show up sometimes. The U.S. that year took home a gold medal. After Farrell was done with his Olympic career, he moved to Illinois. He would go to all sorts of different skating shows, races, and other events, and sometimes still race in them. He married and had 2 sons, Roger and Richard, who he attempted to teach skating to. They are currently now in their 60s and 70s. Years and years later, just one of the myriad of stories there is, Roger became a sports writer. He was going to meet with some of the other sports writers in that area and noticed one of Farrell's past writers was there. So Roger told the sports writer that he was John Farrell's son, and he recognized him. This just shows the fame that he had and still has with some of the skating community. After he had settled down and got older, he worked as a department manager for Sears. He worked at the same Sears in Illinois for 40 years. Unfortunately, he died on June 20th, 1994. His Olympic career will always be remembered because of his memorabilia, medal, and family. His single bronze medal is a source of pride for the Farrell family.